Coming up next on Functional Moms Podcast.
Can relationships trigger migraines?
Absolutely. Yes, a toxic partner, a toxic boss will create anger, frustration, which is going to load your liver and give you migraines. Grief, sadness can give sinus migraines, just so much crying and therefore phlegm inside of or around the face. Anxiety is a huge emotion that will trigger migraines. If your partner makes you feel anxious because you don't know if you can trust them, because they meddle with your family money, or if they sometimes go outside of home and you're not too sure why, all of that stress and anxiety can trigger.
Welcome to Functional Moms Podcast, lifestyle medicine for women over 40. Let's age on our own terms. This episode is for you if you've ever struggled with migraines. Our guest today sees migraines as a meaningful body signal and helps people unpack root causes. Migraines affect women more often than men.
Diane Ducarme is the host of the Migraine Heroes podcast, founder and CEO of the Migraine Heroes app, a Harvard Business School alum with neuroscience training from Harvard X. She blends Eastern medicine, engineering, and modern science to uncover the true roots of migraine. Her Migraine Heroes podcast shares breakthrough insights, practical tools, and real stories to help you manage your migraine.
Diane, welcome to Functional Moms Podcast. We would like to start by learning what is the difference between a headache and a migraine.
So the difference is massive. It's everything. A migraine is a full body attack that can last between 3 hours up to 3 days. It can also start one day and never ever stop. And in addition to head pain, which is felt for most people, but not all, people will experience other bodily symptoms such as dizziness, vertigo, numbness, half paralysis of the body of one side or the other, but also nausea, vomiting, cognitive impairment, speech difficulties, and they will be taken in what is really called an attack, where they feel their body isn't collaborating or functioning as well as it should. On the opposite, a headache is something non-genetic that is just a bit of head pain that anyone can feel any day.
Now, is it true that you can have migraines just sporadically? Because I'm just going to throw myself out there just to kick us off. I actually this summer had my first experience with a migraine with aura, I believe, where I all of a sudden couldn't see. Like I was, and it actually preceded the headache, and then the headache came. But I wouldn't call myself like a chronic migraine sufferer. So is it possible to just have them sporadically?
Yes, absolutely. You can also have them sporadically. The frequency and the intensity is going to vary person by person. And I would say overall, the more you're going to be healthy, the less you're going to have them. So it's a bit like a fire alarm, if you will. The more the environment, or you have pushed your boundaries within that environment, the more something happened. And what is really confusing is sometimes it can be some things. So you have a threshold at which your brain is going to express a problem. And the more the layers above these thresholds are going to add up, the more likely you have to have a migraine.
So that makes a lot of sense. And it actually leads right to our next question, because I believe mine was perhaps perimenopause related, hormone related. And our next question is, how do hormonal changes like perimenopause trigger migraines?
They are so interrelated, and we know that because when we look at the data, because things are genetic, migraine is technically genetic, it's 5% of boys and girls, which makes sense, right, if it's going to be genetic. However, when we enter fertility as women, the incidence is going to triple to quadruple, leaving 18% to now we talk about 21% in the US of women with migraine, so 1 in 5. And then when we hit perimenopause, the incidence, if you take into account dizziness, vertigo, doubles again. And so that leaves a huge number, a huge proportion of women with migraines. And the West is a little bit confused because it says, while we can see that hormones have a high impact on migraine, we also cannot explain that massive delta between men and women just with hormones. And so when a woman enters perimenopause, everything changes and sort of we roll the dice and new symptoms, new things happen.
Does lack of sleep trigger migraines?
Absolutely. So I was referring, or replying to Kristen when she had her experience, lack of sleep can be absolutely a migraine trigger. Yes.
Okay. And so do we know what mechanism in the perimenopause causes the increase?
Yes. So when you go into perimenopause, in the West, we say that your liver as an organ can shrink and lose up to 44% of its volume. If you go east for a minute, when you say liver, it doesn't really mean the piece of flesh just below your right rib cage. It has another meaning. When you say gan in Mandarin, it means your liver, your gallbladder. It means a lot of your brain, namely your temple, wrinkles across your eyebrows, the top of your head. It refers to your eyes and to your vision. So exactly what you were mentioning in your example, when you have aura, that's what we're referring to. It means irrigation of your tendons. It means your breast, your uterus, your ability to detox, your hormonal production, female hormone, mood hormone. So you can hear from my mother tongue. My mother tongue's French, and I grew up in Belgium. In Belgium, you have to learn at least 3 languages to get a job, at least two to three. And I went a bit overboard and I learned 7. And it's quite striking how in the West, liver just means liver. It has no other meaning. In the East, in Mandarin, it just means all of these other things. Why? Well, because they say your liver as an organ, if you cut it and you put it to the side, it doesn't do much. But it's with the liver team that it provides a miracle, a small miracle every single day. And so when that function decreases, of course, you'll have a lot more symptoms that relates to all of that system. And so as women enter perimenopause and their liver organ decreases, their functional ability of the liver decreases, and they are more prone to having migraines because that system is so hyper related to the brain. And namely, Raquel, when you were asking about sleep, we're going to have a detox phase of the gallbladder from 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. and then a detox phase of the liver from 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. And so when my sleep is disturbed, I'm going to have my brain detox much less efficiently, and therefore I'm going to be more prone to migraine. However, the reverse is also true. If I have a lot of migraine and I suffer so much, and I really want to insist on that because it's awful. It takes all of your life. It steals your days. It's just really, really difficult condition because it's also completely invisible. Other people think you're fine and you're not. And so when the more you have migraine and the more you medicate, the more your liver is intoxicated and the less or the more you're going to struggle to sleep. And so these things are 2 facets of the same coin.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that makes me think when you're talking about all that stuff, what about in terms of like diet? Is there a specific diet that you would be focusing on for people suffering from migraines?
Yeah, absolutely. Because if you take the liver playing such a central role in perimenopause and also for people throughout their life, there will be diets that will be terrible for migraines. So anything that will massively impact your liver. So, too much fatty foods, too many toxins that can come, by the way, from food, also from the environment, like heavy metals and things like that, microplastics. All of these will impact negatively the liver, which is going to impact negatively the migraine. But a much cleaner diet and a diet in season will help support a really good liver function, which will help support a really good brain. That being said, sometimes you will have listeners that lives like saint. They do all of the right things. They follow your podcast. They do everything right. And still that part of their life is incredibly difficult because it can come from a lot of different root causes. And this is one of them. It's a fundamental one, but usually there's a bit of a domino effect. Was the liver the problem in the first place? Or did that come later? And why? And so how to fix it, if that makes sense. Because sometimes you might feel, but I do all of the right things. I never drink. I don't go out too much. I'm always to bed on time. I exercise, and yet I feel very unhealthy.
And so you help people get to the root cause. Can you tell us a little bit more about how you help people do that?
Yes. So when the body has so many symptoms, and you start to read all of the symptoms, you can connect these symptoms to root causes. And then when you do that, you can know where the problem came from and then how to fix it. Just like you would see a fire in a house. Where is the foyer of the fire? Did it start in the kitchen? Did it start with a few candles in the living room? And you go and extinguish that. When you extinguish that, not only the migraine goes and the dizziness or the vertigo, and so the person is able to little by little think sharp and freely again over time, their other symptoms go. Was it an IBS? Was it a leaky gut? Is it a thyroid issue? Is your skin dry? Do you have trembling sensations? Do you have cramps? Do you have a blurred vision at night? And so all of these symptoms, they need to go as well. Now, if you have a lot of pain, then you will take painkillers and medicate. And when you take over-the-counter painkillers or triptans, for example, there's a class of medication that is administered for migraine, very standard. The science will tell you, if you look for it, not too much, it will tell you that the more you have those, the more you will have migraine. You can silence your pain, but it's a bit like silencing your child when they jam their finger on the door and you tell them, and then you start to wear a headset to be home and function. You just ignore how loud they're crying, what they're going to do next and cry louder. And so it's really important to be able to listen to your signals and attend to them.
Quick pause. If you're enjoying the show, subscribe here on YouTube so you never miss an episode.
And if you like to listen on the go, you can also follow Functional Moms Podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. That way it's ready whenever and wherever you are.
Now, let's get back to our conversation. So it's interesting because, when you're talking about also your environment, what you're eating, but also your environment, when we talk about environment, would you include relationships? Like, can relationships trigger migraines?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Raquel, for that question. Absolutely. Yes, a toxic partner, a toxic boss will create anger, frustration, which is going to load your liver and give you migraines again. Absolutely. Grief, sadness can give sinus migraines, just so much crying and therefore phlegm inside of or around the face. And you can have anxiety. Anxiety is a huge emotion that will trigger migraines. So if your partner makes you feel anxious because you don't know if you can trust them, because they meddle with your family money, or if they sometimes go outside of home and you're not too sure why, all of that stress and anxiety can trigger your kidney system. Now we go into kidney, bladder, adrenals, sense of hearing, sense of smell. So you can be triggered by just the perfume of a friend when you meet up, and you become really annoyed of being that woman who asked their friend, can you just not wear perfume when we meet? It really triggers my migraine. But at the same time, they're completely invisible. So you really feel like a complete unreliable, picky friend who, whenever she shows, asks for something special, when for you it's that of 5 days bedridden. And so anxiety will also provoke these migraines.
Yeah. So it's interesting because you use the word picky, being a picky friend. So speaking of picky, does perfectionism trigger migraines?
Yes, absolutely. Because when you control your environment so much and when you want everything to be perfect, you tend to be a bit more impatient, more frustrated. If you're very type A and things don't work according to plan, that frustration can lead to imbalances. Those imbalances will lead to migraine. It can also be that, in childhood, usually if you have a genetic position, they may declare themselves before perimenopause, but sometimes they really arrive in perimenopause and are more not so sharp migraine attacks, but more low-grade dizziness and vertigo, things that come with you every single day. And you start to no longer be able to work, no longer be able to be in a Zoom meeting, no longer be able to just participate in life like everyone else. And that's just incredibly disheartening because you start to lose your self-confidence and you're not sure what to do. And the more you medicate, the more the medication will intoxicate your liver and therefore lead to more pain. And you get into a very vicious cycle because your liver is at the same time able to take much less.
Yeah.
I have heard a lot about middle-aged women having issues with vertigo and things like that. Could that be your only sign of migraine? Could it just be the vertigo and dizziness?
Absolutely. There's actually a disease called Meniere's disease, which is a disease of dizziness. It's been categorized that way, but will be linked to your brain is 74% liquids, your body's 60%. So your brain needs incredible hydration and good fat. And if it doesn't have enough, you will feel your gut-brain axis being more dry. So the roots of your gut-brain axis, so your bowel movements are going to be more dry. You have more constipation, and at the same time, you have more dizziness. So if you pay attention, you might notice it as slight correlation. The days I struggle and I have constipation are also the days when I have more dizziness. Then you start to understand how your gut-brain axis can be influencing your migraine negatively, but therefore also positively.
Okay, so it's really tracking those symptoms and what you're feeling every day and connecting it all together. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. And that's what we do, Migraine Heroes, all day long. And if you're listening to us and you're in pain every single day, you might wonder, how is that even possible? Yeah, I think we're the only ones to do that worldwide so patiently. And we do that for 100 people at the same time in parallel, and they finish. And it's just incredible. I think I have one of the most happy and joyful job in the world to give people back to their life and their families. And it's extremely daunting because people who suffer from migraine disease, they will have tried everything, but literally medication, acupressure, even traditional Chinese medicine. They will have tried homeopathy. They will have tried an osteopath, a cranial person. They still continue to live with that invisible disability. I really insist on that. They appear normal. If it's 1 in 5, definitely more than 1 in 5 of each of your friends. And they don't like to share it because it makes them feel vulnerable, and then people jump to them with solutions. And I think the best way to reply is with tremendous empathy. And I think they will be surprised if you do that, not trying to solutionize, but trying to say, hey, I hear this is extremely tough, and I'm so sorry you're having to deal with this, because it's literally ruining their life.
Well, I just have to say that I feel like I could sense how, like, your passion for what you do. Like, I just feel like you really care for your patients and just everything that you're doing. And we usually ask this question, but we did not ask you why led you into the work that you're currently doing.
So I had a skiing accident when I was 17. And I lost half of my blood. I shrunk a kidney and I broke my femur. And for 12 years after that, I limped. My cycles were a complete mess. I had fatigue. But when I say complete, like 63 days, 53, 49, and then another 70. No menstruation after stopping the pill for 7 months, like really, really messy. And then I had fatigue. When I say fatigue, I would be able to sleep from 2 p.m. for a nap. I'd go for a nap and I'd wake up the next day at 8 a.m. because the alarm clock rang. I had put on a lot of weight. I used to be able to eat whatever I wanted. And now my body had completely shifted. And the major reason why is one of the root causes of migraine is that I was never transfused for blood. There was blood contamination issues in France at the time. And they had said, she's 17. We don't have blood in the bank. Anyway, she's just going to survive. Except I was very anemic. And so when you don't have enough blood and you have a genetic predisposition for migraines, you have massive migraines because your blood is 400 miles of blood vessels. And for me, it didn't manifest that way. It manifested with extreme fatigue and all sorts of symptoms that I carried with me for 12 years. So when I was at Harvard Business School, I had these symptoms. It was quite hard to navigate a social life and everything, and studying if your body just doesn't cooperate. And for work, I went to live in China. And in China, I met a doctor that I went to see randomly, not even for that. You go and see a doctor when you don't have a problem. I didn't think I had a problem anymore. I was 29 and I was accepting that this was my new me. And within 3 weeks, just using foods, she reversed everything. And I went back to who I was when I was 17. And when she did that for me, I was like, wow, what did you just do? And I think Migraine Heroes is my love letter to give that back to people. And I find that I was hoping I would be able to make a difference. Like for me, what I realized is I didn't have a problem. I had imbalances, I should have never complained about because I see how much suffering people have. And then I had my sister who had migraines. And then the day everything changed, I had the daughter of a neurologist and her father was advocating for a lifetime of injections in her brain. And I said to her, don't do that. That doesn't seem very reasonable. Who would ever do that? Turns out a lot of people do that. Hey, I think I know a better way. If you give me 6 months, maybe we can change this for you. And we did. It took 4 months. And she was like, wow, I thought this is great. And then I said that to my friends and family, and they brought me people with 40 years of migraines every single day, taking 6 triptans a day. And I thought to myself, I still remember sitting in front of that woman. I thought, oh my God, what is this? I did not say I could do that. I met people in pain every single day after concussions. I really thought to myself, I never said to my friends, I could do this. What is this? And then with Dr. Zhang, she supported me all the way. We developed an entire system to be able to do just that for all of these women. And it's been just an incredible ride. People meet Migraine Heroes and then their life completely changes for the better. And that makes me profoundly happy. We're also very good with fertility, not that it matters. Well, sometimes after 40, but it's just the joy, the joy, the joy. And perimenopause is really a moment when things get just extra, extra tough. That's why so many women have to thank you because things get, so complicated. The whole body, it took you so long to understand, it's changing again.
It's so true.
And you're chasing a new balance.
And it affects every system in your body, which is what we've really learned over. Honestly, Raquel and I have just been learning for the past 2-3 years. Prior to that, I had never even heard of perimenopause. I didn't even know it was a thing. My doctor had never mentioned it. So it really is crazy how many systems in the body it affects. You mentioned that you switched your diet. What were the things that you found were the triggers?
So for me, it was a blood volume issue. So in the West, we're going to read that you have an iron deficiency and give you an iron pill or an iron infusion. If you take an iron pan and a liter of blood, they have something in common, but not quite a lot. In traditional Chinese medicine, you look at it as blood volume. In her fertility years, by the time women meet you, they have lost 23 to 28 liters of menstruation. If you take into account the children they produce more than half of their weights of physical matter, of biological matter. Men do not go through that. Men may be produced a leader of their own themselves. Yeah, that's it. Like we produce more than half of our physical bodies. And so we have very sophisticated systems. And if you don't reproduce blood at the same speed as you lose it because of a copper IUD, because of a difficult pregnancy, in my case, because of an accident, because you donate blood, that will give you migraines if you have a genetic predisposition for it. And that will give you all sorts of massive symptoms, regardless that you have a fire alarm, genetic fire alarm or not. And so I just needed to increase my blood volume in my situation. Now, as I've done this work for a really long time, I know things are really nuanced. If you've had surgery before, you also have dirt in your blood. If you have had a lot of medication, you also have dirt. So you have to first remove the dirt before you add the blood in order to make the brain truly happy.
Sorry, I'm not following. What do you mean by dirt?
So if you've had surgeries, sometimes people have up to, 7 surgeries is the most I've heard. The doctor will cut your tissues and you will have a few dead cells that circulate inside the blood vessels. And those dead cells are impurities that do not belong. Now, your body, who's a very old system, doesn't have a special wire for dead cells, please circulate, it exits. Yeah. So these things don't really exit and they stay lingering inside of the blood vessels. Now, where are they going to go? They're slightly heavier than your blood itself. So it might go in your feet. And then when you pump your feet because you walk, you may get varicose veins. That's fine. If you sit, they fall as well, but then they fall in your butt. Then it gives a bit of hemorrhoids and you don't have a pumping mechanism to get out of there. And then when they can circulate, when they go back up through the left side of the brain and they can give tremendous left side migraines, in which case you just need to clean that, take all of these impurities, flush them through urination, or they can also form blood clots that are in the uterus. And then the migraines will be super strong during menstruation. And so regardless where they are, you need to clean that. That's what I would call a little bit of sort of impurities, dead cells. And then typically what we've noticed or what we suspect is that sometimes other molecules attach themselves to that. So they form slightly larger, not life-threatening, yet very annoying blood clots because they block these very, very tiny veins and they need to be purified. That's how, for example, someone with hemiplegic migraine on the left listening to us, that's most likely one of the major root causes of what would be happening inside of their body, which for them can be a lifetime of pain.
How are you cleaning this blood? How are you getting the dirty blood out?
So the wonderful thing is that nature has everything in stock. So we work with 790 foods, and some of these beautiful foods will just take these impurities and bring them to urination, or take blood clots inside the uterus and expel it with a little bit more power. And so that's wonderful. That's how we do that. Does that make sense?
Hey, did you know that you can get top supplements at 25% off through Functional Mom's Full Script store?
From Pure Encapsulations to Thorne and Nordic Naturals, these practitioner-recommended brands help you age strong. Grab yours now. Link in the show notes.
Show notes. Now back to the show.
So just to be clear, so what you're saying is that you would eat certain foods that clean. Would it be like a juice cleanse for, like, can you give us an example of like an actual food or like,
So when we work, what we do is we just add food. You can't live on a restricted diet for a lifetime. Plus, usually people who suffer from migraine disease anyways are people who have a very clean diet. So what you want to do is you want to analyze and understand what are the different root causes of this person's migraine. If they have a liver intoxicated, for example, like we were talking before, chances are their gallbladder is full now and the bile is starting to go into their stomach spleen. And so their gastric juices, which should be having a pH of 1, is now also weakened. Okay. So that's going to cause other types of migraines, like forehead migraines and digestive issues and digestive problems. So there's a domino effect happening. So what you need to do is, if you think of someone like an onion with multiple layers of problems, you unpeel them 2 by 2. If the person, for example, has had a lot of surgeries, one of the very basic food they can have is a saffron infusion. So you take a few threads of saffron, like 4 or 5 threads of saffron, and you put them in hot water. The water will become very yellow, and you just drink that beautiful water. And that's going to make your pee a bit more yellow, and it's going to take all of the impurities resulting from surgery also with it very gently. Now, please do not do that if you're pregnant, because we don't want to clean the blood while we're pregnant. Okay, I'm just mentioning in passing. Yes. Mm-hmm. If you have a lot of dizziness, vertigo, be mindful. It can accelerate it. That's why it's not It's never with a food. It's never one size fits completely all. So if you're pregnant or if you have dizziness, don't do that. If you had some of the vaccination against COVID that give a lot of clotting and a lot of complexities in your blood, probably not right for you either. What is beautiful and natural and can be so healing is also can be harmful if done in the wrong way.
Good point. And so it sounds like you really want to be working under guidance of a physician and your team. Would that be how it works?
Yes, you want to do that. Yeah, absolutely. So the way we work is we basically ask about 75 questions. You take a migraine assessment and we look at all of your migraines, but also all of the symptoms. What is your body trying to say? What is it complaining about? And then from there, we have a conversation with me and we go through from the first onset of migraine all the way to today. What was your body trying to say all the way? What is it trying to express? And then as we do that, then we start to uncover the root causes. So inside your app, your Migraine Heroes app, we remove all of these layers one by one. And just it feels, we have happiness quotes every single day inside of the chat of the app because people are just, getting through a transformation and they have a moment of gratitude and they are so profoundly happy, but they're also a little bit bitter because they feel, why did I lose so much time? So there's this ambivalence of emotions. We just had a man, for example, write us a message and he said, been 25 years, I have this problem and you fixed it in four weeks. And I feel extremely grateful because I've seen 10 experts and none of them were able to fix it. But at the same time, I feel a little resentful. I lost 25 years of my life, when it was actually feasible and I was about to live another 40 like that.
And so that's a good point. You have men clients as well. It's not all women.
It's not, but it's a majority of women because the female body is incredibly more complex. And there's a Chinese saying that says, once you have solved 10 men's health, you haven't solved a single woman's. Just to say
that sounds about right.
It does. Who does a YouTube channel for andropause, men in andropause, their system is just more simple. They're a more simple creature. If you think of the production of a man, it's sperm. Sperm is of a moderate sophistication compared to a child. We are able to produce children like full brain, full heart, full eyes, bones, collagen, skin, hair, nails. We all do it. Okay. So therefore, if you were comparing the female factory and the male factory, of course, the female factory can have more things that go slightly off. That's normal. And I think sometimes, underestimated how big of a difference it is.
Absolutely. Why do people feel guilty for resting during a migraine?
Because they have to cancel plans, they can't work, and they can't take care of their family. And I just want to add the word again. So they're not even having that selfish moment where you think, I'm just going to read my book on my own. I'm just going to go for a sauna. I'm going to go for a swim, which would be your personal time. This is not personal time. It's pain time. And so not only they're ruining their time, they're also they feel they're ruining that of their family. And so guilt is a huge component of the difficulty of migraine disease. It's not just the pain itself, it's the fear of the pain, of how much pain am I going to go into, how much more pain is that migraine attack going to be. When for example, if the pain hits every day at 8 p.m. or if the pain hits every day when you wake up, you fear that moment tremendously. And then on top of it, when you have a migraine attack, you're going to be out for 3 days. It means the father of your children needs to take care of the kids and of the kitchen, etc. Again, so the guilt is just another aspect that needs to be dealt with that is incredibly difficult. And then it becomes easier to be more depressed and more isolated because you don't want to say yes to things. You say, okay, again, I'm going to bail on my friends. And you start to close yourself from the rest of society.
Yeah. I have to say, even myself, I've pushed through a migraine for sure. Just thinking maybe, you just think, well, people get headaches all the time, so I have a migraine. I have all this stuff to do. I got to push through, it's not good.
Yeah. I have a personal story about migraines as well, where I was getting consecutive migraines. I had just recently become a single mom. I have 4 kids and I was working and I was so stressed out on how was I going to do everything. And I started getting these migraines that would last for hours. And it would be so intense that I would end up in the bathroom throwing up, have to make my room dark. There was a woman from my church that was a nurse and I called and she came over and it was just this thing. And then, I would just take Tylenol, extra strength migraine and all these things and get better. Then in another couple of days, it'll hit me again. And kind of like what you said before, I was scared about when is this going to hit me? I couldn't work. I didn't have dad to drop the kid, to take over. I would have to call a friend to take care of my kids while I tried to get better from this migraine. And then it turned out that for me, I ended up in the hospital because it was happening so much. And I thought that maybe I had a brain tumor or something. I didn't know. And turned out that I was having anxiety attacks.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the root cause of migraine. And once they told me that that he thought I was having, he's like, listen, you're not having seizures. You don't have a tumor. I was in the hospital for like 3 days and they said, I think you're actually this is like anxiety induced migraine headaches that you're having. And they gave me some medication and I did try the medication for a period of time. He said it was something I would have to get used to, but it would make me very groggy or just made me feel weird or different. And I just realized that I'm not going to be able to take care of my kids if I feel kind of like groggy and just not myself. So I just started journaling more, meditating and doing other things. And I did look at my diet more. I just was trying to clean house. I realized that a lot of the migraine was a lot of toxicity. And I think it was the toxicity of my own thoughts of how much fear I was feeling at that time that was making me sick.
Absolutely. I mean, of course, I'm not surprised. But at the same time, well done. Go you. That's exactly the right way to do it. To just take you see it coming, you take a pause and initially you have to go west. You have to do the screening. You have to make sure there's nothing. You should go and you have to go to your doctor, do the CT scan, do the MRI. But from the moment they say there's nothing, then just, hammering things, mindlessly with medication without taking a pause and saying, hold on, what changed in my life? How can I support myself better? What is triggering it? Let's write that down. Let's think for myself. If you do that, coupled with your previous question on being a type A, sometimes a type A can then suddenly go in panic, and especially if they're a bit burnt out, and go in boom, 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 like a to-do list mode, where they continue and they start to tinker with a lot of solutions, medical solutions in parallel at the same time, which creates complete chaos in the brain and will create a lot of complexity. It's like the onion layers itself up very, very fast, very violently. It's possible then it becomes then daily, chronic, and the person feels stuck. And in spite of, going then back to, wait a minute, maybe I need to remove the toxins, the anxiety, etc., she still is in pain because there's so much damage that has been done meanwhile. So yes, go the Kristen way, all the way. Yes.
Yeah, so you were able to get that root cause like way back then, Raquel. That's amazing.
I know. That was before I even knew about functional medicine.
Yeah, right? You were doing it already. So we have some rapid fire questions today for you, Diane, because we had so many questions for you. We thought you could give us just like a yes or no on these. Does chocolate trigger migraines?
Yes.
Yes. Can lemon soothe a migraine?
Yes.
Can scrolling on your phone trigger a migraine?
Absolutely.
Is binge eating a migraine trigger?
Yes. A migraine trigger and a migraine announcer, like a prodrome symptom. Yes.
So something that would come before the migraine. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's announcing the migraine. So it's a two-way street.
Okay. Is loneliness connected to migraines?
Yes.
Are people with ADHD more likely to suffer from migraines?
Absolutely.
That would be me.
I didn't know that was a new fact for me. I didn't know that.
Yes. The forehead. So in ADHD, it links to the forehead mainly, and the forehead is linked to the stomach spleen in traditional Chinese medicine. So it's a system. It's your digestive process of how you break down food. It's how you digest your food. It's also how you digest your thoughts. If you think of a child eating an ice cream super fast, they start to freeze their stomach and then they slap their forehead and they say brain freeze. They can feel alongside my gut-brain axis, alongside my vagus nerve, my prefrontal cortex relates to my stomach, which is a huge find that the child makes and that we're making increasingly in Western science. And so when my thoughts are scattered, or I'm overthinking, or I'm not falling asleep, or I'm not able to meditate properly, it's usually a sign that I'm also not dissecting my food and digesting my food really well. And therefore, I'm going to have a tendency to have forehead migraines. Yes. Which then will lead to weaker kidney system, a bit more anxiety. So there's a domino effect that can very quickly trigger from that unless it's properly addressed.
Wow. So much to learn. So much to learn, Doc. We might have to have you back on again. But being mindful of our time today, what are 2 things a woman can do to manage migraines or even possibly prevent migraines?
Yes, absolutely. I think the number one is something I love is, because it's so wide spectrum, is just to have a chamomile and goji berries infusion. So a chamomile has 2 powers. It's going to detox your liver and boost your liver. Okay. And it's incredible because it does these 2 things. Now, the flip side of a chamomile is that it cools down your liver, but therefore it cools down your digestive tract. And you don't want to do that too much because it could lead to diarrhea and just a weaker, less strong metabolic function. Therefore, you pair it up with goji berries, 8 to 10, not more. It's very potent. And those goji berries will boost your liver, so they will detox and stimulate. It will also nourish your kidney system. It's an adaptogen, so for your kidney system, it's wonderful. It will reduce inflammation. It will increase your blood and increase what is in traditional Chinese medicine called yin, so the noble liquids that irrigate your brain. And so the 2 together are a perfect mix. You can have that in the evening before falling asleep. However, do not have that if you are on a FODMAP diet because of IBS, if you are having your menstruation, stimulating your liver will make you bleed more. We don't need you to bleed more. And if you're having certain classes of medication like, sedatives, then, it acts on similar pathways and then don't have that too often. That would be annoying for the medication. I think that's the number one. I think the second one is every week, twice a week, I give free advices like that on the Migraine Heroes podcast. And that can be a good avenue to find your way, just like Raquel did, find your way to remove those root causes, to find your balance, to find your way if you can. And then if you need a lot more help, you can track on the Migraine Heroes app free of charge.
Awesome. I want everyone to know they can connect with Diane on Instagram. Her handle is @Migraine Heroes, or visit her website, migraineheroes.com, where she has a migraine assessment. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yes. So the migraine assessment is really asking you 75 questions about your migraine, your symptoms, and piecing the whole picture together. What is really cool is once you start to understand, where does my pain come from? And those sessions last 90 minutes after your migraine assessment. And this is really a moment where women finally understand, they piece together. It's what Raquel was explaining about her example and her situation, and really going back from childhood or whenever the migraine started and understanding the full picture.
Great. And where can people listen to the Migraine Heroes podcast?
So on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Audible, it's all there. People love it. People come back a lot because it's just very practical. It's also 15 minutes. And so that sort of inserts itself nicely in the day-to-day when people have, so much pain and struggle with the huge to-do list they already have.
That's great. So digestible information. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Diane.
Thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for advocating for migraine.
We need your support. If you're enjoying the show, follow, like, and subscribe. Thank you for Aging Strong with Functional Moms podcast. We would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment or review. Email us at info@functionalmoms.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the subscribe button.